Welcome back to another Plasticon review. Today we're going to cover Daruger, also known as Vehicle Voltron. Here is Daruger split up into his three super mode vehicles. Now this is a model kit I got some time back, and it's a very old model kit. These are very difficult to come across, and sometimes if you do find them in the aftermarket, they're normally the reissue version. This is a very old one that I have done. I do admit some of the paintwork isn't the best because it's, let's be honest, some of us aren't the best at doing extremely tiny stuff. I personally wished I would have done this a little better. I'll probably go back through and retouch this thing up in the future. Mainly because it's the time I did the paint work, I wasn't doing that well. It was a very bad time in my life, so I was like doing this just as a therapeutic thing. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys this, so here we are. So looking at Daruger, he's split up into his three different powered up modes here, and I'll show you how each individual mode works by themselves here in a second. But anyway, he's in his sea mode, his ground mode, and air mode. It's very cool. I do like this entire set. This set is amazing. But anyway, let's go ahead and cover these guys individually. Take a look at the air mode one first. This air team looks amazing. I do love how this works. It's almost, to me, a perfect transformation, especially for the scale. If you hadn't noticed, the scale is very little on this, and tiny stuff is what I really like, and this is probably the closest I'm ever going to get to actually having a small version of Daruger that I can afford sitting on my shelf. And I think it's really gnarly. The helicopter blades do spin, but they're only just held in there just by the holes. I've thought about putting a little bit of nail polish on those to kind of make those a little tighter, which I probably will do here in the future. But I think it's cool that these actually spin. The shuttlecraft on the top, this actually is kind of just held in with friction, so it can kind of fall off if you're not too rough with it. It'll stay, but if you're trying to whoosh this thing around the house, you're going to lose it. It's going to fall off. But I think it's really neat. And he does split up into all the individual vehicle modes. So let's take the shuttle off here first. Like I said, it comes off very easily, and it's pretty neat. It's got a lot of detail inside of it, which I do like. And when I did get this, this was actually all white plastic, not red, so I had to paint the entire thing. And it's got a lot of detail even on the underside. The underside's got quite a bit. Now I see you have a little bit of paint rubbage here, but that's going to happen, especially if you're going to have this guy in his full formed mode, which is, you know, why we primarily have this guy. But I do like the shuttle. I'll move the shuttle here up out of the way. And let's take a look at one of the helicopters here. And take the blue chopper. And these do just peg right in. And the pegs, I'll get into how that system here works. It's pretty neat. Doesn't have a lot of detail there on the cockpit. The cockpit itself is just supposed to be blue, so I just left it the way it is. He's got some pretty decent detail there. It's not terrible. It's got his little fin here sticking up out of the back, so I think it's a very smart looking little helicopter. Now this doesn't move in or out or anything. This is actually in a fixed position. I know that a lot of the super crazy transformation ones actually compress in and all that. I've seen a lot of the high-end stuff, but you know, I like this one. This to me is amazing. And what's cool about this thing is it really reminds me of the Matchbox one that we had when we were kids. But the Matchbox one didn't seem to live up to the hype that this little kit does to me. Let's go ahead and pull the red one here off. And then the red one here got a nice little window there, and it's pretty neat. I do like it, and I'm a big fan of it. I do like the white stuff, the white just pushed out there, and it's a very neat looking little helicopter. And getting into the middle part here, separates right here. So that way you can actually pull the rocket nose off. And the rocket nose doesn't actually do anything here. This actually does not close. I wished it did, but it does not close. And that's just something that, you know, kind of crazy that that's just not actually a thing. As for the center section, it's a cool little rolling tank doohickey. He's got these little treads here. They don't actually move, but a lot of detail sculpted into this set. And what's cool is it's actually got, like, you know, the bits and pieces are laid out so that way it can actually only be done one direction, which is cool. And I do like that about it, you know. But let's go ahead and move on to the rest of this guy. Take a look at the ground patrol. I know this is kind of funky how this is put together because the original one I would actually have the fist portions here. It doesn't actually have capability of doing that with this version. This version you actually just balance the two fist part, or the fist cars on the top. But it does have rolling wheels, which is cool. I do like the fact it actually has functioning wheels, which is unnecessary for a model kit, but I think it's really cool. This makes this more like an action figure, which is more what I like anyway. But it's still kind of fragile because it is a model kit, but I do like that. Anyway, the little fist pieces here, they just kind of come off here, and here's the yellow fist. And it does have articulation. It does move this way. That way, you know, you can do this little twisting of his arm. That's pretty neat. It's got those little wheels just kind of in there. Nothing crazy. These don't actually roll. They're just glued in place, which is cool. But it's a very neat little representation of the small yellow fist car. Taking a look at the red one. The red one has got his quite a bit of detail in there. Does the same thing. It's very neat. I do like it. And he does have the little twisting mechanism. I do know this right here is supposed to be the windshield. It's supposed to be here. Like I said, I'm probably going to go back and do a little bit of hyper detail to this thing later. But at the time, I did kind of just basic paint. And then as for this center section is kind of weird how this works, but you rock this back and forth a little bit just to kind of unpeg it. And same thing here. These just kind of unpeg. And the thing is, these little peg pieces here actually just come out. They are by themselves. So you can, you know, leave them attached like this if you wanted to. So it's got the rolling mechanism, which has got the little treads here at the bottom. So it's just like a little tank dude. And what else is cool is he actually has a tiny little feature here, which wasn't even necessary that it happens, but this actually opens up. So it's got a little radar dish system on the inside with a little pew pew gun. Doesn't really have any detail on the inside though. It would have been cool to see a little bit of tech detail there, but that's okay. I still think it's neat that that even opens. Very unnecessary, and I think it's cool. But hey, that's what I love about this thing. It's just got a little quirks here and there, and look at all the detail just sculpted on the inside. Like, this was designed for you to actually play with individually as toys, not necessarily just a model kit. So, and what's great is you got these little brakes here, so you can just kind of put these brakes really anywhere you need to. And this kind of goes into the system that these guys use to attach everything. Everything here is attached with these like kind of almost like a rubbery type of grommet that holds everything, and it holds everything pretty firm, which is nice. This thing isn't just going to fall apart on you, especially when you like lift it up and, you know, move it around. The only part, like I said, I have an issue with is the shuttle piece on the front, which I might actually fix that with a magnet one day, but it's neat. I do like it. Let's move on here and look at the black car. And the black car is molded in yellow, so I had to paint everything black on him. He's got this windshield here picked out because that's exactly what he looks like. Got a little bit of silver detail there on the front and nothing there on the back. I thought about actually painting all these, but I was trying to kind of stay toy accurate with it as well. Like I said, he has rolling wheels, so you don't have to worry about the wheels falling out. These are all individual pieces you actually have to put together. It's very neat. I do like the little truck. I've always been into the truck ones. For some reason, this in here was like, kind of remind me of, this is how he like, very off-roady. Reminds me of Trailbreaker from Transformers. I don't know what it was, but it always kind of reminded me of that, and I think it's cool. And then we're going to look at the van. This is more of a, kind of a van style. I do know I need to go back and kind of repaint the striping here, because you're supposed to just have a bit of a, kind of like a pin stripe that goes straight across here, and here on the front. It does have little windows here, and it's really neat. I do like them. Got these little like wheels that roll. Like I said, these guys roll really well. I do like that about him. Anyway, let's move on from the ground patrol. Taking a look at the Sea Patrol. The Sea Patrol's actually got a very interesting look to them. I've always loved this thing. It reminds me of like a huge battleship, but this is underwater. It's really cool, and it's just, I don't know, I'm just into this. This is really, really gnarly how this whole thing looks. I just like how it's all put together, and this thing holds together very well. It's very firm, so it doesn't actually fall apart. Like I said, the only downfall of the ground patrol is the fact that the fist things don't actually lock in, and the same thing for the little shuttlecraft on the air patrol. But this guy holds together really firmly, except for these. It's always some kind of silly little quirk, but you know what? That's okay. They just slide right back in. But to be honest, if you're going to play with this, you're probably not going to drag it around because the wheels do not roll, but it does happen to have these nice little just sculpted treads and such, and a little bit of red there for the red one, and nothing really there on that side. It's pretty neat. Anyway, he does break up into the original vehicles, so let's take this, what I call the yellow sub. It's pretty neat. Got kind of like the same cutout piece going on here on the back. Very similar to the little rocket shuttle from the Air Patrol, but it doesn't fit in the other ones. I love how everything kind of has its specific point that it plugs in, which is cool. Kind of keeps everything separate. Although these guys are kind of mix and match on some bits, but not much at all. Check out the little red shuttle, or I should say submarine, because that's what these are. These are all submarines. It does happen to have little wheels. It should have the whole wheels. I actually forgot to put those on. Guess when I go back and do the 2.0, I'm going to put the wheels back on, because it didn't have the wheels. It's the only part I really hadn't finished on this thing was that, but that's okay. But anyway, lots of detail. I do know this area is supposed to be like the cockpit area. It's supposed to be here. Same thing on him is supposed to be, I think, in this area here as well. So I'll get around and actually do a little more detail to these guys later, but I like how this toyish looks. It's just, the toyish aesthetic is really neat. And he does happen to have a little rubber grommet piece going on in there. And same there. That's what's neat about this guy, is he actually has very, very nice attachment parts. So I'm going to take this thing here off, and this is one of the underwater tanks, I should say. This actually pushes in, so that way you don't have to have that sticking out. And it can push out on either side if you wanted to, because it's supposed to be like their gun array and stuff like that. It shoots out of the sides here, which is cool. And it's neat that it actually just kind of pushes in all the way just like that. It's got some pretty decent detail on it, and they're really solid, by the way. They're not, this isn't like a crappy type of model kit plastic. It's actually pretty durable type. I do know I probably need to go through here and paint in the windows here on the sides, which would be neat. But I'll get around and do some of that later. I do like this toy. It's very neat. Let's move on to the next one. And let's take a look at his partner here. The red tank. And this in here is kind of loose on mine. I bet you I probably took this out and flipped it around, and it might actually fit a little. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe it did. See, it varies. But anyway, very similar design. It's a little different. Not by much, but just enough. I do like the design. I've always loved the design of Daruger's always had this cool aesthetic, and I don't know, it's just something really appealing about this. I just really like this. I might end up having to go through and I'll clean up the paint a little bit later on and stuff like that, but I think he's really neat. And here's the main sub. You notice I did a little bit of line work here to kind of show the little tiny windows, because these guys are supposed to be huge. Something's supposed to be enormous. If you notice, he's got like the little pillar system kind of built into the yellow bricks there, which is cool. And this is actually fixed here in position. And it's got that tiny little bridge up there, which is really neat. But yeah, I love it. It's cool. So let's go ahead and build Daruger. First things first is let's get his little feet here in position. So that way we can start putting that part together. I'm going to grab the little bricks from this waste piece here that I had plugged in. And these actually only go in one way on these, which is cool. So it does happen to have one specific direction that these have to go in, because they are kind of a rectangle versus a square, but off just by enough so that way they actually fit in just fine. So moving on from there, we're going to put his legs on. Just happens to go on just like that. And this here goes on just like that. And then we're going to use these tiny subs, and these tiny subs we'll plug in just like so. And then we'll bring in his waste piece, and the waste piece actually has these little pegs here. And the funny thing is it doesn't really matter which direction you go with this waste piece. That's what's kind of crazy about it. It's one of those weird ones. Oops. I tend to try to have his kind of belt buckle going this direction, so you can usually tell by just this. Anyway, he's getting kind of tall now, so we're going to have to raise up here a little bit. I'll bring in the waste piece now. The waste piece, I should say his torso. This part here actually pushes in, which is cool. They didn't even necessarily need to do that. They could have just like left it out and said, oh, well, then that's good enough. But nope, that actually pushes in. And then you're able to put this piece right here to form the waist and the torso. And then you bring in this part here, and this here is the chest piece. It's got this square part here that will plug in just like so. And then we'll bring in one of the arms, and one of the upper arms here. You've got these parts here that kind of stick out, and this is actually for the little fist robots will actually plug into those. This actually pushes in just like so. And we'll bring in the other helicopter. Like I said, these kind of come off very easily, and probably after this video I'm probably going to put a little bit of nail polish on those to kind of tighten those a little bit. By the way, it does happen to have detail underneath those props as well. If you wanted to make it so that way you can actually take them off all the time, I do suggest using nail polish, because nail polish is your friend when it comes to trying to attach things that don't want to be permanent but be tight enough so that way you can actually enjoy playing with the toy. Let's go ahead and put one of the yellow fists. So the yellow fist here goes over here, and it plugs right in. And like I said, these are all those little rubbery type of plug-ins, so you're not going to have to worry about plastic rubbing on plastic here. It's actually a piece of rubber that they actually push into, which is nice. And then, you know, it makes it so that way you can actually maneuver his hands and move them around however you're wanting to do so. And we'll bring in the headpiece, which we'll plug in directly on top. And then he looks cool even without the chest piece, but we're obviously going to bring in the chest piece. And the chest piece just friction holds with these two bits here, which kind of friction hold behind the red part here, which is kind of difficult to do. Like I said, it's a very weird thing. I might end up putting some like magnets or something like that. But there you go. Here you have Deruger in his full-on combined mode. And he's got, like I said, the rolling wheels, so he can roll forward and backward. He doesn't have any leg articulation. You can kind of splay the legs a little bit, but I wouldn't do it too much because you'll probably end up breaking it. But he does happen to have elbow articulation, which is nice. And the fists do move, so he does have a little bit of playability in this mode. And to be honest, this really isn't any different than the Matchbox one that is out there that we had when we were kids. But yeah, you guys want to see. You guys want to see him next to Voltron. Well, I happen to have my older model kit here of Voltron as well. So now you have Go Lion and Deruger together. And yes, I do know that is not actually his sword. He didn't actually come with a sword, so I was like messing around. I was like, hey, I've got this spare sword. This works pretty well in his hand, so. And it kind of scales just fine, so that's one big reason why I opt out for that. But I think this is a very, very neat looking set. They actually scale very, very well. So if you happen to find the older Voltron set like this, that's the model kit, maybe try to go for this one here to complement it, because this actually has the full functions as well. It fully transforms, it does all the lion stuff where they all turn into the lions. It does everything that it should do as a Go Lion. This does everything that Deruger should do. So as far as I'm concerned, this is about as close to having masterpiece stuff as I'm ever going to have. And I do love these. These are perfect in size. They're not too big either, which is nice. I am really, really a big fan of things not being so large on my shelf that I can't really display it properly. Here's a bit of a scale here with a 3 3/4 G.I. Joe as Scarlet. And just because I can and I have him on hand, let's put him over here next to He-Man. So it kind of gives you a bit of an idea of how big these kits are. They're not enormous, but they're also not small, like super tiny. Here's a MicroMaster for you guys as well, for my Transformer collectors out there. So you guys can see exactly how tall he is. And I just think it's neat. I'm a huge fan of model kits, and I've built model kits ever since I was a kid, and this guy just, he really is an amazing piece. And I really think you guys should try to get hold of some of these. This is a good alternative. It's sometimes a cheaper alternative to getting into trying to find the authentic action figure. Maybe just get a model kit representation to set on your shelf, because sometimes you're really just going to get it just to sit there and look cool anyway, so why not do it with something like this? And that's kind of what I've done. But anyway, this has been Plascon. This has been a crazy review of an awesome model kit that I absolutely love and highly recommend. And that's all I got for you guys today. I'll see you guys around, because I have plenty more coming your way. And that's it for now. Bye!